Mhm.
We're just really just having a conversation. I mean, first and foremost, we should jump into it. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good,
Yeah,
bro. It's been a minute since ATL, so
yeah,
good to see you. You're looking good, and yeah, man, I'm trying to do the same. I've been just on the road, just
yeah.
working.
I don't know if you recall, but I did come to the Ripple House. I did see you there too, so I knew you.
Right, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um
How was that week? How did that week go for you? Because I know everybody was hustling and everybody was working.
yeah, that week was explosive. Definitely sat down with a few people looking to build on some new chains. Kind of
Yep.
explore. Um, Definitely Ripple is one of the chains that we're like looking to build on.
Okay. XRPL. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So.
just have to make that distinction a lot of times because
Oh yeah.
people say Ripple, but that's the company, that's the corporation, that is the entity. XRPL, is the open, decentralized, blockchain. All right. So
Mhm. Okay, so me and you actually had a very interesting conversation that was monumental to me when
mhm.
we had met in Atlanta. And just to recap for the people that are going to tune in, the conversation was just being more open to the idea of centralization, right? Which
Mhm. Mhm.
most of us that are in this space, especially us young guys that are in this space, the whole point of this was to get away from that, right? But undoubtedly, with what we've been seeing, we do see that there is something that's needed that is centralized. Now, I kind of want you to break it down because are we turning blockchain into a centralized thing, or are we building centralization on a decentralized kind of protocol? Like, what do you say
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah. Whether or not we are building a centralized entity on a decentralized platform or not, right? I think that that's like discussing religion versus discussing spirituality.
Okay.
Okay. Can we say that you've got all these differing you know entities or books or that relate back to an experience that we seem to be having in this space. That's the religion versus spirituality, concept where, if you flip it into blockchain, it's almost the same thing. It's like we're in a space where um you've got a technology that allows us now to pull out certain pieces of a centralized banking structure that we don't have a need for anymore. However, there are pieces that we have a need for. Obviously, we can debate who is we, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the way things are lining up, I always start conversations by talking about like a glossary or key terminologies, like, what are we talking about? Are we talking about just crypto assets? Are we talking about tokens? Are we talking about coins? Are we talking about digital assets? Are we talking about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies? Are we talking about stable coins? Are we talking about, but as you get down and you start to define these things, you get to a point where you're like, oh, we have DeFi, decentralized finance, which speaks to a specific technical implementation of a set of processes that exist in a centralized world. So DeFi speaks to, smart contracts, and it's protocol based, right? That, they provide services such as borrowing, lending, market making, yield farming, blah, 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 right? So all those things are happening without a certain set of intermediaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
That if I were to drop down and I say, what is centralized finance? Centralized finance refers to like crypto, crypto native, like financial intermediaries that are now trying to offer trading, and their own services on top of what's currently available. So, you want to talk about, like, I don't know, Fidelity, right? Or someone that comes in from the centralized space that says, oh, we want to offer our clients certain assets that are crypto assets, right? And then so they've now structurally placed themselves in the middle as an intermediary in between the value of what they feel is their community and the value of what their community wants, which is the crypto assets. But they have now intermediated the smart contract process, right? So those folks who, the same folks that when I say folks, or organizations that created, those, the Fidelities, the Bank of Americas, the JP Morgans, the Citibanks,
Right.
they're in this game as well, right? So there's that side of things versus on a distributed network, the need for interchange, interoperability, standards, the movement of money. Like that's where I would pause, right? I would say, like, you got to understand that we have to have like a basis first. If we can agree on what the basis is and what the glossary of terms are that we're talking about, and that we've all kind of like level set on those terms, then I think we can have like a structured conversation about whether or not we need, or what's happening on the blockchain. Because again, in this space, we're so early. There are only a few experts, right? I just happen to be doing this thing for long enough that I'm able to aggregate together enough of the history, enough of the skill sets to be able to do not just the technical pieces, but then also talk to the business that needs to happen on top of these protocols that we're talking about. And when you get to trying to define use cases for a business, that's when you start to really understand what you need to make yourself like sustainable, substantial, reliable, scalable, all these other terms. Okay.
So I would say probably if we're going to look at mass adoption, most people are going to get onboarded onto blockchain through probably like an intermediary, just like what you were saying, right?
Correct.
But do
Sorry, I'm in Brooklyn, so I got a little bit of background going here.
Oh yeah, you're fine. So do we want that, as opposed to maybe perhaps trying to onboard people into this new DeFi space and kind of ecosystem by teaching them how to become their own kind of entity?
That's a great question, right? You're talking about like onboarding is a specific term, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're onboarding, and that means giving up certain pieces of your anonymity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you're also now talking about mass adoption,
Right.
okay? And then on the other side of that, you're talking about literacy. So to actually get through that process, you're gonna have to, as an individual, first of all, you got to pick who you are in the space. Are you doing these things as an individual? Are you doing them as an entity, right? A legal entity? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you like, these are like delineations that, this is why when people talk to me, you're really going to get annoyed, because I go all the way back to the start and I say, first of all, we need to define a set of terms of what we mean by this, and
Right.
who are you within the scope of what we've defined, and then where are you on this trajectory, and then what structured steps do you need to take yourself to get to that point? Because for me, I work within the context of, yes, I work in the space, but then I've also existed in crypto prior to working in the space, where I created my own, crypto asset management company, my own OTC desk, left the US because of the regulations, moved to London, moved to Zurich, lived in Switzerland for a year, trying to create this business and seeing what the realities of what power actually looks like when you meet it face to face. When we try to say, all these theoretical words that we have as decentralized, and we're debating, and I hear people talking about it, like it's kind of like the term in hip hop where you're like, you got strong fingers on the internet, you could type what you want.
Mm-hmm.
But you see me face to face, that's a different thing. Right? Like
Okay.
you go manage your keys a little differently, you see me face to face, right? And that's basically what's happening in crypto. Is like, yeah, we have Twitter, we have all these communities, we have all of our DAOs, we have everything where everybody is talking and talking and talking, but are you building? Right? What are you actually building, or what have you built? And until you actually have felt the pain of building something, onboarding, like you say, and trying to deliver a product or trying to do something in the space, other than just speculate on the price of something that you have no idea what's going on, those are two totally different things. So I always say to folks, like, try it yourself, see what problems there are. Don't be, don't be what is it? It's like, we come up with these solutions before we actually go out and try to figure out the problem. Yes, there was a problem. There was a problem. There was a problem in centralized finance world of banking that warranted the creation of this technology, right? And
Right.
the technology takes care of that. So it takes care of, if you want, full anonymity, go use Monero, right? There are plenty of things out there, mixers and all kinds of things to obfuscate and hide your identity, right? But, and I'm gonna say it, right? It's like, if you're doing something that you need to hide your identity, blockchain is not it, bro. Blockchain ain't it. It might be over in the space that I just mentioned, in terms of specific blockchains that are doing that work to hide you. But in today's world, in terms of the graph and the analytics and the AI that's being done around tracking and managing, what's happening on these networks. Yeah, your KYC might not be there, but those addresses are there, and those addresses are public.
Well, let's talk about that, right? Because I did sit down with a nice young lady last week,
Mm-hmm.
and her concern was the exploitation of certain groups of people because of the blockchain,
Correct.
right? So
Correct.
okay, blockchain is probably not the best option that you want to use if you're trying to keep things a secret, but it might also be used to exploit people in various numerous ways, right? Because
Right.
now almost everything in the near future will be on the blockchain,
Correct.
and certain things will be emphasized, whether it's taxation or
Mm-hmm.
whatever could be used to pull wealth away from people rather than to bring wealth into people. So what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think was KRSA? I think very deeply. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that is exactly it sits in my thesis, my theory, basically my theory of action, which is like, if you go about, and that's why I said to you, like, there's literacy, which, from the regulatory perspective of the people that we put in place to make decisions about laws that affect our benefit in the banking space, like, those people are pushing our literacy right now. And I don't believe that literacy is the only problem. I think we have, I've been in the space since 2014,
Mhm.
and I've seen the position that Black and brown folks have taken. Like, it's new for some folks. This is like, crypto is not new. Okay, neither is digital money is not new. Digital asset management is not new. Crypto asset management, if something is more than 5 years old, like, you're not new anymore,
Right.
right? So I push back in that perspective to say, you basically have to start moving.
I think we might have froze up a bit. Sorry, we back?
Yeah, you back? You
Yeah,
there?
yeah. Sorry, we froze up again. So you were
Okay.
saying?
Yeah, so hold on one second.
I think you froze right around saying if you've been around for 5 years that you're not new.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've been around for that long, right? So I started, probably officially 2016, but going back to 2014,
Mhm.
I was working in the banking, fintech, financial space, ripping out systems and putting in systems into many of the large banks here in New York, right? And I came up on a card processing company, and they were like, "Oh, we need someone that knows blockchain," and no one knew it, right, in the company that I was in. And I said, "All right, well, let me do it." Right? I'm always pushing the edge and trying to figure things out. So let me do it. So I took $300. Ethereum was $13 at the time. I put my 300 on Ethereum, and started to speculate at that point. And then I was like, well, this can't be what these guys want to use this thing for. So it pushed me down into blockchain and understanding what the network is and why they would want a federated network between a payment network and then a crypto based payment network, right? And then that let me see, like, oh, okay, this thing is going to be around for a while. So I say to folks who are early in the space, like, yes, we do need literacy, but we need this to hurry up and get out of literacy and build like a capability, right? Because
Mm.
the longer we spend, and I'm going to quote someone that I can't name, that has been elected, and is making decisions around what's happening to crypto, and some of the legal aspects, is that black and brown people, they said that black and brown people still see crypto as like a receipt or as like a lottery ticket. Okay. And that statement flies directly in the face of, hold on one second. All right, give me 1 second.
No problem.
All right, sorry about that.
Yeah.
I got teenage kids, so it gets a
Yeah.
little loud around here. All All right. So basically just saying that as you go through this process of learning, like you can't stay in this like space where, oh, what's happening to the markets? What's happening to my individual token? Like you really have to have some kind of stake in the process, some kind of growth pattern, some kind of like perspective of the future, and not only the future of the space, but like your own future, right? Meaning that you're gonna grow from being just talking about literacy of, oh, I know what it is, right? To say like, all right, I'm running my business on the blockchain,
Right.
right?
Right.
I'm earning income on the blockchain. And then also not only that is like, because blockchain goes all the way, I call the strategies that I use, I call it cradle to cradle. You kind of hear people talk about cradle to grave, right? No, cradle to cradle, meaning you got to have a perspective of generational wealth, right? You got to be able to say, what happens if I get hit by a bus tomorrow and I'm the only one in my family that knows about blockchain, and worse, that knows what's up with my keys, right? And then all the work that you just did to get yourself to a certain point, that goes out the door, God forbid, with you, right? So literacy can only, that's only going to work so much. You have to build a full scale capacity into your living structure, right? Like just like you would, and just like, rich or wealthy folks, they become their own bankers, right? And that's the point, that's where I am, where I'm trying to get folks to become their own bankers. I've got, the persona that I go out into the world and speak about these things is underneath, the hood banker brand, right? As the hood banker, meaning that in our hoods, whatever our hood is, whether it's community organizations, whether it's how we investment groups, your zip code, whatever it is, you need to start to build a capacity inside of your family group, whatever it is around learning these things and building a capability for y'all, because you can't just do it as individuals anymore. Like we have, because at the top, like when you talk about money in the world, you're talking about like going to create like Swiss bank accounts. But like I'm telling you, like I've been to Switzerland. Like
Right.
I've tried to walk in with assets, contracts, the amount of things that are necessary to open these accounts, deal with the people that actually have their fingers on the button. And the moment you walk in and you're this color, right, that the game changes, right? So it doesn't matter where you are in the process. You just need to be in the process, and you need to build in an aggregated sense so that what do they say? It's like, what does Marcus Garvey say? It's like organize, centralize, and come as one, right? You can't just come as yourself as the individual. You need an umbrella above you to come and say like, this is our, because that's how we're seen in the world, right? We're seen as the the economy of, I'm from the Caribbean, but I live in America, so I take on that cultural identity as Black and brown people in America. And when it comes to the economics of our dollars, it's we're seen as one large group, right? And we are sold to as that group. And then in that case, our power should also be turned around and reflected as that group, not just as individual consumers and onboarded as individuals, but we should be onboarding as our organizations. That's my, back to your question, like around, what do I think about, the need for just kind of like saying that yes, we need to have this literacy, but inside of literacy, we actually need to build like these functions and these capabilities that, you know, yes, we do learning, yes, we do all these other pieces, but we're doing it all the way through, and not just for us as an individual, but for our organizations, and then not just for our organizations, but accumulated, so that, you know, we go from cradle to cradle, that my child, you know, my child can grow up, and if they become a member of this group or this organization, then they step in and they take the role of what I did in the future, and we're not starting over.
So that brings me to something that I wanted to definitely talk about, right? And what I wanted to talk about first is two things. Number one, I've been entertaining the idea of passing on generational wealth through smart contracts. One of those things is, if I was to tokenize any one of my assets, that I could possibly set up a, you know, some kind of mechanism that might release the asset to a certain address that might be given to my kids, even though I don't have kids, but, you know, for my kids to come, things like that. So we've been entertaining those ideas and how we're going to build out those ideas. But now this brings me to this. Talk to me about XRPL, where it's at, and where do you see it going in terms of what is going to be possible to be built on?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So you want to know just XRPL's ability to build out functions.
Functionalities,
Yeah.
smart
Okay.
contracts.
Yeah.
Where are we going
Agreed.
with it? What's coming down the pipeline?
Yeah. I mean, you know, everything that's public, I can say it's
Mhm.
like, you know, the scope of the growth that is happening on the network is happening just as it's happening everywhere else in other blockchains. Is to say that, you know, we're moving from just being a network for payments,
Mm.
right? So you're able to do so much more on the network. I mean, we're big into NFTs now, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, the new NFT standard was just created. So, you know, the bottom line is everything that other blockchains are speeding to do because they're newer. Those things are coming on the XRPL ledger as well. Because again, you know, I hate to use this term, but because we kind of took a different, and I say we, meaning like I work here, but I've only been here for a year,
Mhm.
but then a year in you know, fintech crypto
Yes.
terms is a year is like dog
Like,
years,
yeah.
you know. So I can truly say that having been here for this long, that um Ripple as the company is kind of like being treated as the adult in the room, quote unquote,
Okay.
meaning that they're the ones that the SEC is going after, right?
Right.
The company of Ripple, because right, like when what's happening to Ripple, kind of the ripple effect goes out into the rest of the crypto space, right? It affects everybody else in terms of you know, crypto, you know, finance, banking, blah blah blah, all those things. So I'm saying that to say is that um, obviously a lot of capabilities have been held at bay and held back because we're in the space that we are around the lawsuit. But the idea is that we will be growing, you know, internally, growing from a product set, you know, into just the same areas that other blockchains are as well. It's just that it's, you know, it it's a challenge when you're in the lawsuit at the very same time, right? So you have to be
Right.
careful as to what you bring out publicly, and hopefully, you know, hopefully the lawsuit goes away within, you know, the next year, and some of these other pieces that I know are coming will be top shelf, right? So I like the fact that we took the you know, the NFT route, and I can see other pieces that are coming, but NFTs are number one in terms of like, you know, transitioning value and utility, you know, for collectors, curators, creators, music artists, right? So that's that, changing the way that you know, artists kind of huge. So that standard will definitely free up a lot of trapped capital right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've been definitely entertaining bringing digital into Ripple. Just a background. So digital is more like an ecosystem
Okay.
for the creator. It turns them basically into a business. So it gives them a storefront. They're able to use their data to reach more customers. It's more peer to peer, direct from artists straight to customers.
Right.
And I like what I see so far when I go to the blockchain and just like the dev docs. I'm waiting on some of the other developments, you know, similar to like, you know, when it comes to like the NFTs, smart contracts. I think when it comes to XRPL, it can definitely be huge, especially when, you know, everything that's going on kind of clears up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
let's now take a route as if everything goes well.
Hmm.
Is XRPL the blockchain that people of color should come to and start building on? Why or why not?
Hey,
Does it
listen,
matter?
does it um does it matter at this point? I probably think is better. I would say for me, I want people, you know, to build around just like what you said, right? You just talked about like build, you know, bringing an entity, bringing a set of functions for entities, for businesses.
Mhm.
So I think that, you know, Black and brown people should be in crypto. We should be in the blockchain space. I think we should be structuring and accumulating a base of value to then be able to mobilize that value, kind of like what you're saying. I mean, I think we're all kind of who are in the space doing that, um, to take advantage of what that can bring for us in the future. For me, I feel like with my background that I understand what banking systems look like, right? And the reliability, the scalability, the maintainability, the usability of those systems. And, you know, is XRPL there today? If I use all of those top level umbrella statements that I just said, no. But
Right.
is any blockchain there? Like there are ones that I feel like as a personal individual that I like that are doing those types of things as well. But I also know that being the adult in the room, there are a large number of organizations that are building their interaction using the XRPL standards, and you know, the standards and interoperability of standards run things, right? So that's to me is the key thing when you're you know, of color, of, you know, of the culture, of the art culture, and of in that space, then you want the widest range of your reach, you want access, you want to be able to leverage, you know, the networks. So I personally, you know, see that the growth that XRPL can have in the future is like I've never, I personally, and I'm someone that's been in the space 20 years, okay, in terms of like fintech and banking, and then just in general, enterprise software in general for 20 years, right? And I've never been this close to the ability to take, I'll say, advantage of the technology and the things that are happening. And I don't think any of us have, right? Like when the telephone was created, were we that close to that technology? I don't think so, right? When the internet was created, were we that close to, and when I say close, I mean like ownership of assets that allow the the technology to exist, and and you being like an investor in that technology, right? It's like we've never been that close. We weren't that close in telephones. We weren't that close in, and we might have been, but then we might have been just individuals, single ones of us, right? Television producers, right? Production companies, these things, like, yeah, but the technology of TV, right? The technology of satellite. My pops was an electronics engineer that the electronics that he designed and engineered were like on the space shuttle, right? So
Yeah.
I would be sitting at home talking about things that that I was learning, and he'd look at me like, that's a joke. And he'd be like, that's not rocket science. This really is rocket science.
Right.
Like it literally is rocket science, right? This is the science of putting things into space. And he was that close to that technology. But for me,